My name is Keith Allen. I'm 49 and I'm an emergency medicine physician. I was looking online for an opportunity to experience what was articulated in Michael Pollan's book, and I came across synthesis as an option last year, and I think I booked it probably in May or so, hoping to resolve some issues with my father that were going to come to a head as he passed away in October, ironically 3 weeks before I came here for that very purpose. Like I said, the last time I was trying to get some clarity about how I could make amends with a father that I'd had my entire life, with whom I had been at odds, who was stubborn and emotionally unavailable and all sorts of other things that made it very difficult for us to be in the same room together. I ended up coming to an understanding and an ability to forgive him before he died, even before I got here. And so my purpose that first time changed from how do I understand my father in a way that allows me to embrace who he was and not carry a bitterness after he dies, to one of how do I reconnect with my younger, purer, less varnished, less encrusted self, that young child that was eager and enthusiastic. I always cry at this part. So, this is more or less a continuation of that, of finding that person who isn't so injured and guarded and emotionally unavailable. I think that's the person I want to be from now on, because the person that I've been, the person that is proactive in preventing disappointment to the point where I sever friendships or am distant with people that I feel like could hurt me if they chose to. It's been completely counterproductive. It's put me in a position where people that I care about, that I want to spend time with, I distance and or completely cut off, because the feeling of being disappointed at the level my father and a few other people have disappointed me is something I don't want to relive. And I feel like by exploring this some more, I may get to the point where I can be that vulnerable, know that the risk is there, and still be willing to take the risk, so that I can live a more fulfilled life instead of one that's walled off and insular. So I figured by coming back here, I might be able to re-engage that beginning that I started in November of last year. And to be honest, I wasn't necessarily planning to come back this year at this time, but the opportunity presented itself, and I thought, I need to do it. And I'll be completely candid. I do not like being out of control. I do not like the feeling of being drunk. I don't use other drugs at all. So in a very real sense, I am putting myself in that same type of vulnerability from a chemical standpoint. I am allowing my brain to be at the hands of whatever psilocybin is going to do, much as I aspire to be that vulnerable person to other people where they could harm me if they wanted to, but I am willing to engage that because of the reward of being a vulnerable, engaged, empathic person. And my expectation is that at the end of this, I will come out with more insights, more ability to overcome those trepidations that I've had about really laying myself out there. We'll see. I don't think this is an end point. I think it's just another step. As far as takeaways from the experience, I would say that from an umbrella standpoint, encompassing a lot of finer details that we probably won't get into, being in the moment, the moment that is here, that is now, not the past, not the future, but the only time that I can actually make a change or focus on what's here. And the cool thing about the psilocybin is it brings into the now all of these little things that are readily dismissed: the sound of a fly, the sparkle of a raindrop on a tree, the colors and these sorts of things. It makes them more apparent, even though they've always been there and you just didn't take time to notice. So that's what it would be in the here and now, live in the here and now. So I have a strong science background. I've done research at some well-established places. I am not a mystical thinker. I don't believe in fairies or the other things that might be associated with mystical thinking. So when I decided to come here the first time, I had to suspend a lot of the skepticism and noxiousness of some of the ideology that goes along with the use of psychedelics. And so for me, the experience was not the tie-dyed go-go dancer, multicolor spectacle that one might envision having if they were using psychedelics. It was more of an opening of insight, an opening of empathy, and an ability to explore each of those aspects to the nth degree, to follow the thread to where it leads. And I had mentioned this to a friend, that one of the insights I got was, if you look at life as a strand that has been tangled by your life's events, and you're left at the end of the strand where today exists, if you follow that strand, that tangled knot, and you start to undo the knot, you will eventually get back to the origin of the strand, and you'll understand and straighten that piece of string. And I think that's true. I think as I experienced it, it was more allowing me to access important parts of me, as opposed to forcing me to be somebody that I am not. So especially intellectual people are excellent at creating constructs that help them survive and reconcile their actions and their environment, no question about it. And the smarter you are, the more given you are to creating a false reality that allows you to do and think what you do and think. And so when you're presented with some of those constructs through this experience, you are forced to ask yourself some important questions about, okay, I've been telling myself this is the reason I do this, or I've been excusing myself because I do this, but the real reason I'm doing this and the real accountability falls to me and is not something I can avoid anymore. And I think for an intellectual person, you should approach it not as, I'm going for a psychedelic experience, because there's so much baggage attached to that word. You should think of it as, I'm going to explore some of the issues that I cannot recognize because I've done such a great job at constructing this false house of cards that I live in daily. Having the ability to get in touch with those raw emotions, the ones that you're so afraid to access because they strike at the very core of who you are and who you've been, I think there could be amazing healing. And people, I think every human being wants a connection, unless you have a bona fide psychologic condition that just separates you from the ability to empathize, which is a pretty rare thing. I think most people would want to have a connection, and when you connect with other people, it's very hard to harm them. And I think that's what this situation does. It helps you recognize you're part of a bigger context. It's not about you, it's about you within this bigger context. So I think it would be healing if that were available to more people.